Even with the acquisition of Matt Strom, the Royals are reportedly still looking for bullpen help. Who could that be? We'll tell you next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned in to another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. You also can listen to us on wherever you download your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering what to expect from this channel, well, for right now, we're just bringing you 3 episodes a week on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, with Friday being our Mailbag Friday as always. So if you want to have a question in tomorrow's episode, just leave it below here on YouTube, or you can always reach out to me on Twitter as well. But beginning on February 1st, we'll be jumping back up to 5 episodes a week. We'll also be in Surprise, Arizona for the first full squad workouts and that entire week. So we'll expect tons of coverage there, episodes every single day, great interviews. We're very much looking forward to it. Now, before we dive into our first segment today, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 Eastern Time. We had touched on it a little bit in Tuesday's episode regarding Andy Rogers' article on where the Royals stand right now and what they might do moving forward. Now, the chunk of that article was more so about, can they still acquire this bat, this impact bat that has eluded them for the better part of 3 years? How are they going to find it? And more importantly, who is it going to be? Whether it's Jarren Duran, whether it's Brendan Donovan, or somebody we haven't even brought up yet, that's what a lot of Royals fans are questioning right now. It's the how is it logical? Who are they going to have to give up? Which team is most interested to move that player? I mean, we've been going in circles with that for a couple of weeks now, if not a couple of months, if you go way, way back. But another part of this article that stood out to me was that the Royals are still looking for bullpen help. And this comes after acquiring Matt Strom, also adding Nick Mears to this bullpen, adding Alex Lang to this bullpen. There's not many spots to improve on at this point. They settled their arbitration case with John Schreiber. Didn't really settle any case because it didn't go past that point. They just settled up with his contract, and John Schreiber is going to be back in the bullpen. So he's another guy that you can count on to have one of those spots. I would imagine Steven Cruz is going to hold down one of those spots. We know Lucas Erceg, Carlos Estevez is going to be there. So where is that upgrade that needs to be had? And it's highlighted in this article that they would prefer it to be a left-handed reliever that has multiple years of control. And that seems to be J.J. Piccola's theme in looking for any type of player. We want them to be someone who has multiple years of control. We're not interested in rentals, and we prefer to make a trade over signing somebody in free agency. That's not always going to be the case. If you can't find the right trade partner, then you're going to have to pivot to free agency if you want that left-handed reliever. It also made me start to realize the Royals just aren't as high on Daniel Lynch or Bailey Falter. And those were 2 guys that I believe to have a spring training battle that is set to begin in about a month and a half. And with both those guys out of options, one's going to make the team, one of them is going to get DFA'd, and they might get claimed by someone else, or they're going to have their minor league option and they can accept or decline it. But that was the other part to this bullpen, or the minor part to this bullpen, which was the other left-handed reliever. You have Matt Strom, who's your number 1 left-handed reliever and arguably your number 1 reliever on the team. But if you're wanting to upgrade with another great lefty, there are some options out there. And I read MLB Trade Rumors article yesterday that had Dylan Dodd of the Braves, John King of the Cardinals, who actually was non-tendered by the Cardinals. You have Jordan Wicks of the Cubs. Like, there are guys out there that are more than affordable. And I would say this, that if Jonathan Bolin was the guy you had to give up for Matt Strom, I mean, it's Matt Strom that we're talking about. One of the more consistent and valuable relievers in the back end of the bullpen in Philadelphia. and really all of the National League. And if you wanted to be really high on the guy, all of baseball. And all it took was Jonathan Bowen, who may or may not have broke camp with you. But the Phillies, they wanted to shed some payroll, and they wanted to get a reliever with multiple years of control, and they like his stuff. The Royals did as well, but they weren't going to, be too stingy about Jonathan Bowen when it came to acquiring a guy like Matt Strahm. But when you look at Daniel Lynch and you look at Bailey Falter, I would ask everybody who, and you can feel free to comment, you can keep it to yourself. If you're watching with buddies or whoever, and you want to, go back and forth out loud, what does Daniel Lynch or Bailey Falter do exceptionally well for you out of the bullpen? What is the thing they do well? Do they throw a lot of strikes? Well, no. Both those guys struggled to really attack the zone efficiently. Do they get a high percentage of ground balls? No. Bailey Falter, when coming over from Pittsburgh, was a fly ball pitcher, and Daniel Lynch doesn't really have ground ball type of stuff. Okay, do they have lights out stuff? They throw upper 90s. They have a devastating slider. They have a devastating changeup or curveball. No, neither of those guys have that. And so I imagine that J.J. McCole in the front office are going, well, how can we find somebody from the left side that can excel at one of those things? Whether they're a strike thrower, a sinker ball guy that just loves to get worm burners all over the place. He loves to get ground balls. Or you have somebody that has the high, powerful stuff, can get the swing and miss. To me, you already have that in Matt Strahm. So they might be looking for someone who can be their ground ball pitcher, can be really tough on lefties. And that's just not Daniel Lynch, and that's not Bailey Falter. Now, before when we brought up Daniel Lynch, we had a couple people say, well, I don't get the pushback on Daniel Lynch. His numbers weren't all that bad last year, and he didn't have that high leverage of a role. So why would you not just bring him back? It's not going to cost you anything. He's a longtime Royal. He's experienced both starting and relieving. Kind of seems like a no-brainer to me. And you traded for Bailey Falter. Why would you give up on him after a couple of outings that didn't go his way? Well, the thing is the Royals are looking for that impact bat. And I still believe they're going to try and get that impact bat, whether it's trade or if they have to pivot to free agency. But last year we saw them go to Carlos Estevez when they didn't get the bat they wanted. They threw money at Anthony Santander. It didn't work out. They threw money at Jurickson Profar. It didn't work out. And so they took some of that money and used it to sign Carlos Estevez, and it turned out to be a pretty good deal. And their logic was, well, if we're not going to be able to get that bat, we might as well make the bullpen stronger. Because Royals fans should all know having a strong bullpen throughout the season and in October is really the difference in how far you make it, or if you can even get to the postseason. There are very few teams in the sport, and if they did, they had an electric offense, but you cannot make it far in this league with a bad bullpen. And the Royals, numbers-wise, have a top 10 bullpen, but maybe the goal is to make this a top 5 bullpen. And we've discussed that before when going over this bullpen. If you get Nick Mears and John Schreiber pitching at a very high rate, and then you have guys like Luinder Avila and guys like Alex Lang pitching well that's going to be the difference in you being top 10 and top 5, because Lucas Ursig and Carlos Estevez and Matt Strahm are going to be consistent pieces for the back end of the bullpen. But that other left-handed spot, that would be my biggest concern. On a night where Matt Strahm's not available and you're approaching the 7th or the 8th inning and it's a lefty part of the lineup, lefty heavy, where you got maybe 2 guys that are lefty to lead off the inning or all 3 are lefties, do you feel comfortable going to Daniel Lynch or Bailey Falter? I wouldn't be. I would rather them go out there and acquire somebody that excels at that, because that really can be the difference in how great this bullpen can be. And having a durable and good starting rotation paired with a great bullpen, look at Cleveland the last number of years. They were able to make the postseason, win the dang division with one of the worst offenses we have seen. Now, they had their superstar in Jose Ramirez, but that was a team that lived on their bullpen, lived on some good starting pitching, and they got it done. The Royals have a better offense than them and still have a higher ceiling offensively, but that's where they can match them, is trying to find a bullpen where there's really no weak links. There still are weak links in this bullpen, and that report makes me think they're trying to weed them out, where whoever takes the ball at any point in the game, you're not feeling as anxious. You're not feeling as nervous in a high leverage spot. How many guys last year took the ball in a high leverage spot and everybody was just grinding their teeth and clinching their you-know-whats? Right? That's how it felt for a majority of last year in the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning, or really just the 6th and the 7th inning, because you felt good about Erceg and Estevez for a number of those outings. But even Estevez had some rocky moments early on in the season. But to me, the fact they're looking for another left-handed reliever, one with multiple years of control, don't get it twisted. They can afford that right now. They absolutely can go out there and afford it. And it wouldn't surprise me in the next couple of weeks if something comes to fruition. Because after they acquired Matt Strahm, I thought they had dusted off their hands, said that's good for the bullpen. But the fact they're still looking to upgrade, I believe that can be a really good sign. Is there anybody that's on your radar through the trade market for the bullpen? Let us know in the YouTube comments below. When we come back, let's talk about a small deal that happened yesterday, and it involves a player the Royals had interest in last season. We'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can listen to us on wherever you download your podcast. Want to tell you about the title sponsor today in FanDuel. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. You make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. For my pick, I'll go to Jacksonville in Buffalo. I will take the over on passing yards for Josh Allen. I will take the over on rushing yards for James Cook, but I will take the Jaguars to win the game, and I'm putting all those picks down over on FanDuel. Also want to tell you about the Everydayer Club, which we are so proud about here on Locked On Royals, and we want to thank you for making Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcasting network out there. But if you want to get more involved, if you can't get enough of Locked On Royals or any of the podcasts that we put out there, you can scroll down below on YouTube. You can scroll down below on wherever you listen on your podcast platforms, and you just click on that URL link, and they can take you from there. You get Discord access. You get text access. You get, ad-free episodes here on Locked On Royals. So if that is of interest of you, I know we're past the holidays, but you still want to sign up. You want to strike on that deal. It's very easy to do. Again, just scroll below, click on that URL link, and they're going to take you from there. There was a minor transaction the Royals made, yesterday, and it involves a player that they had a lot of interest in at certain points in the offseason. And I want to say the first time I had heard about Josh Rojas being linked to the Royals, it actually came from Ken Rosenthal, maybe it was last December or January, to be honest with you. Now, time flies, so I could be way off on that. But I do remember that he was linked to the Royals because they were still looking for a super utility guy to put on the bench. Adam Frazier had already gone to Pittsburgh, so they needed to pivot to somebody else. And at the time, Adam Frazier wouldn't have been a great candidate to bring back in Royals fans' eyes because he was, not coming off of a great season. It was a very poor 2024, and then he changed things around in a hurry in 2025. Josh Rojas did the exact opposite, and it's a good thing the Royals didn't give him that contract and just waited till the deadline to bring in someone like Frazier. But on a minor league deal, no harm, no foul. If you've listened to me long enough before, you would know that I am a big fan of minor league deals. I wish the Royals would give out 50 to 60 of them if it was possible, because there really is no risk in it. With a guy like Josh Rojas, who's coming off a down year in Chicago, a ghastly season for the White Sox, he comes into spring training. He doesn't play well. He looks just like that player. You cut bait, you move on. There is nothing tying you to Josh Rojas. The good side is, if he goes into spring training and wins a job, you've got somebody who might be able to replicate his 2024 in Seattle, which was a 2.2 B-WAR player, and, did hit 230 and got on base at a 310 clip, I believe, but he was really good defensively, and he can play left, third, short, second. He can bounce around a lot. And to me, it is a worthy risk, to be honest with you. You still have Adam Frazier out there, but if Josh Rojas comes in and Adam Frazier goes elsewhere, it kind of comes down, would you rather have Rojas or Nick Lofton out there? Everybody can have their own opinion there. Josh Rojas has had more of a successful big league career. Nick Lofton's cheaper and younger than Rojas and might be able to fit in just a little bit better because we don't know how Josh Rojas is going to look in Surprise. I'll get a look firsthand coming up in about a month and a half. The numbers, though, I almost feel you can just, wash them out when you have minor league deals. Because, again, the risk is not immense. It is not something that, anybody should feel negative about. You could give a minor league deal to somebody who was 0 for 60 last year. It doesn't matter. It's all about spring training and how they look. And clearly, the Royals wanted to bring him back in because he has that defensive flexibility. And it reminds me so much of the Kevin Biggio deal last year, where when I talked to Kevin in Surprise, he had mentioned that the Royals had interest for quite some time. Even when he was DFA'd from Toronto and then ended up going to LA and played for the Dodgers, the Royals were interested. They had been in contact with him. And when he became available after the Dodgers, there was more interest there. And they just waited till the offseason, gave him a minor league deal, and he won a job out of spring training. It didn't work out in the long run, but as I allude back to, it doesn't matter if the minor league deal guy doesn't work out. The Royals have had more success with guys out of the bullpen on minor league deals. But when you're looking for a bench spot, having someone that can play all kinds of positions and play them well, I'll just hit, a little bit over your weight, and you're going to have some value there. If you hit 220 and have elite defense at multiple positions, that might be worth a roster spot if you don't find another Adam Frazier for your bench. But you have the interest last year. You bring him in this year on a minor league deal. He also might go to Omaha to begin the year. He also might be a free agent at the end of spring training. I mean, there are guys that on paper feel like good fits for the Royals, and they never pan out. And spring training's not really the best measuring tool of how good a player is going to be for you. That's a tale as old as time. Spring training numbers do not matter unless you have a guy who's competing for a spot, because there's no other way to judge that player than the numbers they provide in spring training. If you have Josh Rojas and Nick Lofton battling for a bench spot, and Rojas hits 330 in spring training and Nick Lofton hits 240, that's what you have to go off of. Unless you just feel that in batting practice or fielding practice or in the clubhouse that Nick Lofton's a better fit, then you go that route as well. But that really is what spring training is for, to figure out position battles. Who gets the last spot on the team? It's not meaningless. For the everyday guys, the ones that are going to be starting on opening day, the numbers really don't matter. If Bobby Witt Jr. hits 140 in spring training, I'm not worried. You just need to get out of camp healthy. For a guy like Josh Rojas, trying to get back to the big leagues, erase what happened in 2025, he's going to have to come to camp and win it. He's going to have to come to camp and stand out more than the rest, because minor league deal guys are long shots to begin with. And when you're a bench player, you're a position player, you're going to have to prove why you have separated yourself from the rest. And this is before the Royals have even finished up their offseason. I know we've had a couple of mailbag questions come in about what moves they still could make before spring training. I don't believe they're done, which makes Josh Rojas's role a little more complicated. I really don't know if he's even going to have a chance to make the roster. The Royals might have had the conversation and said, this is AAA depth. We basically limped to the finish line last year in Omaha. We might as well load up the roster with a bunch of guys that were in the big leagues last year. And if we need to turn to them at some point in the season, then so be it. There are worse guys to turn to than Josh Rojas, who can play 4 to 5 different positions and play them well, or a guy like Cameron Meisner, who can play all 3 outfield spots and has a little bit of power in his bat. There are worse guys to turn to. And I feel that's kind of what they're trying to do as well. But there's a chance that Josh Rojas comes to camp, doesn't look good, and he's cut. That's the end of story. But it does feel so similar to the Kevin Biggio deal last year. They've had interest for a while, coming off a down year, can play multiple positions, has a chance to win a job in camp. Right now he does. They still could fill out the bench, and then there's really not much conversation about Josh Rojas in spring training. But one of my goals is to have a conversation with him at some point. And if he starts playing well, maybe that could be a little bit of a gold mine that we struck there. And talking to a guy who had a long shot to make the roster, but ended up making it anyway. Do you see Josh Rojas being a potential fit for the Royals in 2026? Let us know in the YouTube comments below. For our last segment, we're going to talk about an old friend that has found a new home. Michael Lorenzen signed a one-year deal worth $8 million with the Colorado Rockies. What does that mean for the pitching market? And what did we think about Lorenzen's stay in Kansas City? We'll tell you next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can listen to me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. One more sponsor we want to tell you about, and that would be Rocket Money. Let's be real, managing your finances can feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. If you've been listening long enough, you can tell that my voice is still not at 100%. I doubt it's going to be at 100% tomorrow for Mailbag Friday, but the goal is by next Tuesday, my voice will be back to normal. It's not going to be such a grind to get through these episodes. Today was an absolute whirlwind at work. I actually had recorded this episode. So this is the second time I'm going through all this stuff. I had recorded an episode in its entirety at work. You've seen me do a couple of those episodes before where the background's different. And when I was going to edit, it turned out that multiple times throughout the episode, connection issues that weren't popping up when I was recording. So it was frustrating. So this is the second time I'm going through everything. My voice, of course, is already worn out, but bear with me. I'm hoping by next week, we're not going to have too many issues with it. The last thing I do want to dive into, though, was Michael Lorenzen getting a deal with the Colorado Rockies, 1 year, $8 million. And I got to applaud him, to be honest with you. Michael Lorenzen was one of my favorite guys to interview, if I was to be brutally honest. He was always so insightful. I found his stuff interesting. He really could break down each and every start in length, and you don't always get that. There are guys like Zach Greinke who just aren't going to give you too much. Even guys like Cole Reagans, they're not going to spend 5 to 6 minutes evaluating a certain start, whether it's good or it's bad. I thought Lorenzen always did a great job of breaking down each and every start, what he did well, what he didn't do well, and he seemed to be such a great clubhouse presence. And when the Royals brought him over in 2024, it felt like that missing piece they needed for the rotation/bullpen. Lucas Erceg was the big addition, right? He was the one that really catapulted them to the postseason because they didn't really have a closer up until that point. James MacArthur was technically their closer, but he was so inconsistent and off and on at times, and they were trying to piece together the ninth inning. What the Royals were missing in 2024 at that point, at the trade deadline, was one of those swing guys. Give an extra starter to the rotation. You know that some of these guys are going to run out of gas. Cole Reagans did a little bit. Seth Lugo did. Waka did. You wanted to have that insurance. And then come postseason time, you wanted to have somebody that could easily transition to the bullpen. And that's exactly what Michael Lorenzen did. The unfortunate part is that he injured his hamstring in Cleveland that year and then never really recovered from it. He did get back on the mound. He did pitch in the postseason, but you didn't get the best version of Lorenzen and the one they expected to have when they traded for him. The numbers when he was healthy, though, were great. And so when he came back in 2025, I felt that it was a really good team-friendly deal. It was a player-friendly deal. and you get a chance to come back and win a spot in the rotation. And that he did. Then he dealt with a few injuries here and there in 2025. But guys like Michael Lorenzen, for a lot of teams out there, are still really valuable. You can count on him for 5 to 6 innings. It's not always going to be pretty or lights out. He still has good swing and miss stuff. He's not throwing 96 or 97. But I remember a start he had against Arizona last season where his stuff was really on and he was healthy and he looked good. It looked like the Michael Lorenzen that threw the no-hitter with the Phillies after he'd been traded over from Detroit in 2023. So for Colorado, a team that desperately needs pitching, they're going to look to someone like Michael Lorenzen on the market and go, this is a guy that pitched the last 2 years on a team that was going to the postseason and a team that finished 5 games out of a postseason spot. We need stability. And the Rockies are never going to spend top dollar. They're not going to go get Framber Valdez. They're not going to get Ranger Suarez. They're not getting any of those top guys. And this is what the Royals used to do in their off seasons where they didn't spend any money. It's when they got Jordan Lyles not too long ago. It was just find somebody that can go out there and eat you some innings. And for Michael Lorenzen, truth be told, I've been to Denver many times in my life. I mean, nearly every other year I'm in Denver. And growing up, I was always going to Copper Mountain. So I've had a lot of experience in the Colorado area. There are worse places to go continue your baseball career. Coors Field is gorgeous. They packed that place despite the record. No, they're not a great team, not even close to being a great team. But I can see the logic, too, for Michael. Let me go make a deal that's more expensive than I got last year, right? He got a cheaper deal last year. So Lorenzen gets $8 million, or I believe it was right under $8 million last year. I could be wrong, though. But he gets $8 million for the Rockies. Okay, we know the Rockies are going to be out of it, but he gets to go there. And if he pitches well, if he's the number 1 or number 2 best guys in Colorado, well, then he's going to be coveted by a team that's in contention. You know, it's chestnut checkers here. We've seen guys take cheap deals or, take a 1-year deal somewhere on an awful team, and you question, why is he taking that deal? He definitely could have taken a deal to go play for the Dodgers or for the Yankees or for the Red Sox. But you take that deal, you play in a no-pressure environment, hopefully it's a good city, and I believe that Denver's a fun city to be in. Gorgeous ballpark, gorgeous weather during the summer as well. Now, it's not favorable for numbers, so he's really putting his neck out there. But if he does pitch marginally well, he's going to be coveted by teams hoping to get to the postseason. Or it could be somebody that's absolutely going to the postseason, and they want him to be a swing guy, like the Royals did in 2024. So I applaud him. I applauded Mike Yastrzemski getting his deal and the amount that it was. I applaud Michael Lorenzen as well. I mean, know your worth when you're negotiating contracts, and don't settle for anything less. And Michael Lorenzen didn't want to settle for less than $8 million. Colorado was a team that was going to give him that. I like it for him. I really do. And the Royals were never going to be in that position where they were going to give him $8 million. And after acquiring Bergert and Kolek and Falter last year, they are set starting pitching wise. I mean, they're looking to subtract, or that's maybe a harsh way to put it, but they're looking to move one of those pieces for an everyday bat. So if you're having those discussions, you're clearly not having discussions about adding to your starting rotation until one of those guys were to be moved. So Michael Lorenzen, when he was done in Kansas City, it felt that there wasn't going to be much entertainment on both sides for a new deal. For Colorado, though, if he goes and pitches well, he might have a team like the Dodgers at the trade deadline, or a team like the Padres, or a team like the Red Sox that want him to be their swingman, and then he'll get jumped right back in to postseason contention. So though I did see a couple of jokes of why would he go play for the Rockies, that just seems like a death sentence, basically. His numbers aren't going to be good, and he's on a 1-year deal, but to me, it's smart. Go have a 1-year deal. $8 million is good value for what you did last year, and pitch well enough where you can be flipped at the trade deadline, because Colorado absolutely will flip him at the trade deadline if he's been pitching well enough. And even if he's not pitching well enough, somebody could look to him and say, well, the numbers are poor because he's at Coors Field. We still feel he can be a good arm for us, whether it be in the rotation or in the bullpen. But that was the news last night of Michael Lorenzen going to the Colorado Rockies. For now, his time in Kansas City has come to an end. What did you make of Michael Lorenzen's stay in Kansas City? Let us know in the YouTube comments below. That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Tomorrow, it will be a Mailbag Friday, so be sure to get your questions in. But until tomorrow, you take it easy, Kansas City.